It's incredible how Blizzard can make decisions that both shock their consumers and live up to every last expectation at the same time. The cancellation of the PvE content in Overwatch 2 was quite the bombshell to drop on the hopeful fans waiting in the wings for such a mode to exist in their favorite franchise. It seemed as if the PvE was going to be the saving grace the whole time coming, keeping players strung along after a less than desirable launch of the PvP side of the game.
Overwatch 1.1, not Overwatch 2? Yeah, but I mean, like, they're adding PvE stuff.
Everything was lining up perfectly. This co-op game mode was going to provide the substance necessary to engage every consumer imaginable with the deep and unique cast of characters, those of which that had already proved themselves in terms of design alone from day one. Why is this such a letdown though? What exactly is it that the player base is missing out on from this abandonment of the PvE portion of Overwatch 2? Well, it could possibly be an experience that would have been able to keep this franchise afloat and thriving for the foreseeable future. In this video, I'll be going over just why Overwatch 2 needed the false promises of a PvE mode to come to fruition, and how it would have been the saving grace for such a dying franchise. To start, let's break down what Overwatch is at its core. It's a competitive clash of a diverse cast of characters with the overall goal of either securing or pushing an objective. Up front, this sounds like a good concept. There's room for individual players to have a favorite character of their preference, while still maintaining the idea of objective-based gameplay. The problem lies in some confusing priorities from Blizzard in this mix of qualities. The goal of a competitive team-based shooter is to hone in on what makes the game quality and mechanics the best for the players. Where Blizzard seems to have invested their priorities, though, is in establishing the cast of characters as the selling point to their game. They have lost sight of how to properly execute the core mechanics of what keeps the competitive side of the game fresh and fun. Though while successful in growing attachment between the player base and the plethora of characters presented, it only led to more questions as to why they weren't executing even harder on this concept. Their attention was focused on season after season of delivering ranked content when they initially established themselves as a game with unique characters possessing interesting backstories that were begging to be explored. Look no further than the pillar of world building and character diversity, RIOT Games, with their execution of expanding upon the substance within the world and characters they had in front of them through a multitude of avenues. The Ruined King, Legends of Runeterra, the Mage Seeker, the list goes on and on when talking about the ways that RIOT Games has opened their universe and its characters up to all sorts of various world building strategies. It's odd that with a similarly admired cast of characters, Blizzard wouldn't take Overwatch 2 to these lengths of diversifying the ways in which their fans are allowed to consume their properties. It's no secret that the player base wasn't too fond of the status concerning the ranked side of the game, so how did the original Overwatch still manage to tread water for as long as it did before Blizzard felt they needed to revamp the dying game? What seemed to keep players engaged with Overwatch was the fanbase's undying love for everything but what was being pushed by the developers. It was a weird mix for a competitive game, as in its end stages it began to be embraced by mostly casual players looking to play their favorite character and their shiny new skin after crossing the $4,000 mark investing in loot boxes. Everything is just backwards. This isn't to say that such complexity in characters can't be in the same environment as a competitive game. Valorant proved that to be an effective strategy when done properly. But when there is such blatant potential of an aspect of one of the highest budget video game companies' most beloved titles, it's frustrating when the brightest light in supporting that aspect is shot down by the people that are supposed to know what's best for the life and longevity of the game. Now, to understand just how effective story-based elements can be when addressing the world building of your game, we need to call back to the proactive approach RIOT Games has taken. With the upcoming release of Convergence, a League of Legends story, the indie developer branch of RIOT Games, Riot Forge, continues to add a growing list of titles that give some context to the lands of Runeterra and the characters within it. As I began to drift from my old obsession with League of Legends, I realized that I wasn't left hanging as there were numerous alternatives that Riot had presented for me to indulge in so that I wouldn't have to leave behind what I did get attached to in League of Legends. Games previously mentioned like the Ruined King and the Mage Seeker took two of the most thought-provoking stories available in Runeterra and fleshed them out in experiences which left lasting impressions on the players. Where Overwatch 2 has so many interwoven storylines involving seemingly every character with another, there's an exorbitant amount of untapped potential in amplifying the context surrounding what makes those heroes tick. But what about all the cinematics that Blizzard released concerning different scenarios between the heroes? Those are very valuable, and I'll give them credit where it's deserved, as the cinematics are all held to a supremely high standard. Though what causes some trouble here is how the players are only allowed to play a game mode where there's little to no possibility to experience these references in-game. When the gameplay of Overwatch 2 PvP almost inevitably dries up, where are the players going to go to indulge in their favorite characters? With no diversification and ideas to interact with the properties in Overwatch, when a player is done with the competitive mode, there's nothing to keep them sticking around. There is no meaningful foundation to fall back on when the support towards the only feature of your game starts to give way. On the Riot Games side of things, I was almost encouraged more to try League of Legends again with the new context and attachment I had for the champions I had played as in other titles. There's a reason the fans were so excited when they first were informed about the development of a new way to experience their favorite heroes in action. Leveling up skill trees, co-op gameplay, story-based objectives, everything was there to pull consumers into their world infinitely more than what was allowed in a simple 5v5 competitive environment. But for some reason, Blizzard came to the conclusion that they would acquire better player retention and interaction by tunneling down the avenue of that exact environment. No longer is there the potential for deeper interactions with the incredible world they built from the ground up. Instead, there is going to be more and more detachment from the franchise by the player base, as poor balance and trivial skin markets continue to plague the ability to enjoy it to its fullest. And it's a shame that fans continued to tell Blizzard the PvE was exactly what they wanted, only for them to abandon the concept, not knowing how much it would save their dying game. According to Blizzard, though, there are still going to be small releases of PvE content as a side option to the main PvP portion of Overwatch 2. This is almost a non-factor, though, as you can almost guarantee Blizzard is going to be fighting to keep their competitive priorities alive, and that the quality and attachment to these events are going to be on the downturn since the pivot to focus PvP. One can only hope that the developers will listen to the feedback they've gotten in just days of making this announcement, and will consider saving their franchise that wishes to be enjoyed by many for years to come. If you enjoyed this video, please check out the rest of my channel, and consider leaving a like and subscribing, as it really helps me out. Thank you.